Metroman is often seen as an exaggerated symbol, a brilliant image of Superman but placed in the satirical world of Megamind. As the only one to escape the destruction of his home planet, Metroman entered Earth as the perfect model of strength and righteousness. He grew up in the Halo, honored as a symbol of absolute justice, the faith and pride of millions. But his victory lies not in defeating his opponents, but in making every battle meaningless in his presence. When he chooses to leave the stage, it is not a sign of weakness, but a demonstration of superior power. Because when nothing can hurt, what is the meaning of fighting? The climax of the confrontation between Megamind and Metroman lies in the most terrible weapon ever created, the Death Ray. Here, Metroman's endurance is pushed to absurd levels, far beyond all physical limits. Unlike previous simulations, this Death Ray is powered by the actual concentrated power of the Sunday, and that's not a metaphor, it's the bare truth. The sun, the giant flare, at the center of the solar system, produces an unimaginably terrifying amount of energy, about 3.88 times 10 to the power of 26 joules per second. That's the equivalent of 91 billion megatons of TNT exploding in the same instant. For comparison, the Tsar Bomba, the most powerful weapon ever built by humans, only had a yield of 50 megatons. That is, every second, the sun produces the equivalent of nearly 2 billion times the power of that bomb. Every second, Tsar Bombas releases the equivalent of 1.8 billion units of energy, demonstrating the terrifying power that Megamind can harness. This is the result of compressing the energy of a star into a destructive laser, designed to erase Metroman from existence. However, Metroman still stands, smiles, and claims to have never felt so alive. The ability to absorb energy equivalent to a star shows that Metroman possesses power beyond imagination, reaching a durability almost on par with a celestial body. To understand the horror of this power, compare it to natural disasters in history. The meteorite collision that wiped out the dinosaurs only released energy between 10 and 23 gem units, but completely changed life on Earth. Meanwhile, Tsar Bombas' Death Ray, in just 1 second, is thousands of times more powerful than this number. Or consider the 1,883 Krakatoa eruption, which released 8.5x 10 circumflex 17 gem units, shaking the planet and damaging hearing at a distance of 5,000 kilometers. However, the energy of a Death Ray far exceeds this number by hundreds of millions of times. Even if humanity's entire nuclear arsenal, estimated at 7x 10 circumflex 19 gem units, were detonated simultaneously, the power would still be no match for Megamind's laser. This shows that the scale of energy Metroman has faced and overcome is unimaginable, affirming his status as a near-invincible entity, far beyond any physical limits humanity has ever witnessed. These comparisons do not even begin to describe the full extent of Metroman's invulnerability. They only highlight the fact that he did not need to dodge missiles or tanks, but stood tall, directly facing the power of a compressed star in a container, and smiled as if it were just a light joke. Although there is no exact data on the consequences of the battles, what Metroman showed was far beyond the limits of imagination. Even when he retired to seclusion, taking on the appearance of the Quiet Music Man, he was still able to burrow through the ground and reach the core of the Earth in less than a minute. This means he penetrated more than 2,900 kilometers of the mantle and crust, where matter is so dense, the pressure is so enormous, and the temperature is so high that no human technology can simulate it. To reach a speed of about 50 kilometers per second, the energy required reached the exciton level of about 10 to the power of 18 joules. Remember, the asteroid impact that wiped out the dinosaurs had an estimated energy level of around 10 to the power of 23 joules, meaning Metroman, even in a single act of willfulness, was very close to that destructive power. And he does it with astonishing ease. To put that in perspective, the Tunguska explosion of 1908, which destroyed over 2,000 square kilometers of Siberian forest, carried an energy of only 10 to the power of 16 to 10 to the power of 17 joules. Compared to Metroman's earth-shattering plunge, that's a tiny blip. He doesn't need to try, doesn't take any damage, and shows no signs of fatigue. Every movement is smooth and natural, as if the Earth were just a thin layer of dust under his palm. Metroman's power, even in retirement, is still enough to recreate the terrifying levels of destruction seen in the Exodon disaster, showing that he had incredible restraint at his peak. A clear demonstration of the scale of Metroman's power comes from Titan, a villain created from a tiny piece of DNA taken from his cape. With just a tiny fraction of Metroman's essence, Titan was able to easily destroy a series of intelligent robots and cause devastating explosions on a city scale. If such a small piece of DNA was enough to create such destruction, then Metroman's true power must be many times greater, far beyond all normal limits. Figuratively speaking, if Titan is just a small spark, then Metroman is an uncontrollable forest fire. If Titan is dynamite, then Metroman is a nuclear bomb with overwhelming destructive power. This is clearly shown when Titan, despite absorbing all of Metroman's powers and being trained to use them, is still completely terrified at the thought of confronting him directly. Titan does not even believe that he can survive a punch from Metroman, showing the overwhelming difference in power between the two. However, strength and durability are only part of the whole picture of Metroman. It is his superhuman speed that truly defines his superiority. In one iconic scene, Metroman notices a moment of video freeze, where less than a second of time seems like hours. During that time, he can calmly reread books, reflect on life, and even plan out his fake death in detail. This ability not only demonstrates his incredible speed, but also shows Metroman's absolute agility and control, making him a nearly invincible entity in every aspect. This special ability of Metroman means that time for him is 86,400 times more dilated than normal. In other words, he can sense and process every movement in the real world tens of thousands of times faster than human perception. However, the pinnacle of that speed is clearly shown in the moment he confronts a series of death rays. As the solar flare approached, Metroman managed to leave, fly to a nursing school miles away, and then return to the same location before the first light even appeared. Light travels at approximately 300,000 kilometers per second, enough to circle the Earth 7 times in a single second. Yet Metroman still surpassed that limit, moving so fast that everything around him seemed to stand still. He could observe the light as if it were slowing down, and then return before anyone else could even notice he had left. This proves that Metroman's speed, even in a state of no effort, far exceeds the limits of light. To put this in perspective, the fastest aircraft ever built, the SR-71 Blackbird, reaches speeds of approximately 3,500 kilometers per hour. Metroman, on the other hand, could cover the same distance before the sound of the Blackbird's engines could be heard in the air. However, this extreme power does not come without a price. He himself admitted that his mind was affected, no longer focused on the battle that day. But despite losing the will to fight, he still possesses extraordinary physical strength, enough to move blocks of matter weighing hundreds of thousands of tons with ease, as if lifting a thin sheet of paper in midair. Metroman's strength is far beyond normal limits, equivalent to handling an aircraft carrier as easily as a guitarist, strumming a guitar. But the scale of his abilities goes far beyond that. Titan, despite being created from a small part of Metroman's DNA, was able to pierce through Metro Tower, a giant skyscraper weighing millions of tons, spanning an entire city block. Meanwhile, Metroman, using only a small part of his strength, outperformed Titan, showing that he is capable of moving masses of up to billions of tons. This is not just about lifting steel bars or pushing mountains, but the equivalent of manipulating the Earth's tectonic plates with absolute control. In terms of durability, Metroman has demonstrated the ability to maintain constant activity at superhuman speeds throughout the day, from moving, observing, thinking, to acting, without showing any signs of fatigue. He does not simply endure battles, but exist in a state of maximum operation, with almost unimaginable speed and precision. Metroman's versatility further solidifies his status as a superhuman entity. His heat vision is strong enough to cut through steel at temperatures of 1,500 degrees Celsius with absolute precision. Superhuman breath can extinguish raging fires in an instant. His ability to see through and observe at a telescopic level allows him to grasp almost every detail in the space around him. In particular, his ability to move on water defies all laws of physics, affirming his superiority. Metroman is not just stronger or faster. He is the embodiment of a superpower arsenal, wielded with perfect mastery and control, unbeatable in every way. All of this evidence points to one undeniable truth. Metroman possesses powers that can scale from multi-continental influence to near-stellar energy levels, and travel at speeds far beyond the speed of light, combined with super speeds that defy all physical standards. He did not leave the world because he lost, but because the world no longer deserved his existence. In an order built on competition, Metroman is like a lone god with no opponents left to fight. The moment the death ray is fired is only the final confirmation of what every previous battle has implicitly revealed. Metroman is not only invulnerable, but also the embodiment of the inevitable, a force that transcends the concepts of victory and defeat. He was the one who destroyed his own legend, then walked away with a smile, leaving behind a world that no one could compare to. However, there is one thing that everyone can admit. We love Metroman. Love an icon who redefined the limits of strength and kindness. And now, as the familiar greeting rings out, hello everyone, how are you today? It's been great. If you love this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our next videos.